Card 4. Don't lose your power and magic. Don't lose your power and magic to infatuation and other forms of relationship obsession or the longing for glittering objects of any kind. The positive aspect is that this is an auspicious time to work on that. Many human beings are highly vulnerable to a romantic obsession, falsely believing they can only find wholeness through capturing someone else. One of the most powerful enchantments or spells is the delusion that wholeness, the inner alchemical marriage of masculine and feminine, yin and yang within, is something you can capture from the outside. Dominated by this delusion, a person becomes a ring wraith, forever seeking the precious, which may be the haughty, money, celebrity, or some other combination of outside objects and events. If romantic obsession is not an issue, this card may suggest a need to look into any other object of unprofitable obsession. Remember, wholeness can only be found where it already lies, within. If romantic obsession or other lack of self-sufficiency is the issue, I recommend the book Love 101 by the late Peter McWilliams. And Peter led a very tragic life. I think the book is available free online now. And what follows are my favorite quotations from the book. But before I get into those, let me say this. My philosophy, dynamic paradoxicalism, says the opposite of a profound truth is another profound truth. And you need a kind of sliding or dynamic relationship between those poles. You can read that philosophy on this website, of course. However, here we are going to be a little bit one-sided because the book Love 101 emphasizes self-sufficiency. And I would see a dynamic paradox between inner independence or self-sufficiency and cooperative interdependence. As social mammals, we need some of both. So here the emphasis is on the self-sufficiency aspect, but it is not meant to slam or diminish what for many is the most transformative spiritual experience, romantic relationship, including those that have tragic magic woven into them. So we are not siding against that, but we are emphasizing the part of the dynamic paradox that's usually much less emphasized and stronger in most folks, which is the self-sufficiency side, and that can take time, aging, to develop and make stronger. So these are quotes from Love 101, but they're going to begin with quotes where McWilliams is quoting others. The consuming desire of most human beings is deliberately to plant their whole life in the hands of some other person. For this purpose, they frequently choose someone who doesn't even want the beastly thing. I would describe this method of searching for happiness as immature. Development of character consists solely in moving towards self-sufficiency. Quentin Crisp said that. In real life, you want the other person's good. In romantic love, you want the other person. Margaret Anderson. When one is in love, one begins by deceiving oneself. One ends by deceiving others. That is what the world calls romance. Oscar Wilde. Love is a gross exaggeration of the difference between one person and everybody else. George Bernard Shaw. To be in love is merely to be in a state of perceptual anesthesia, to mistake an ordinary young man for a Greek god or an ordinary young woman for a goddess. H.L. Mencken. There is hardly any activity, any enterprise, which is started with such tremendous hopes and expectations, and yet which fails so regularly as love. Erich Fromm. To fall in love is to create a religion that has a fallible God. You will become as small as your controlling desire, as great as your dominant aspiration. James Allen. Even in the common affairs of life, in love, friendship, and marriage, how little security have we when we trust our happiness in the hands of others. William Hazlitt, 1822. The continued propinquity of another human being cramps your style after a time. Unless that person is somebody you think you love, then the burden becomes intolerable at once. Quentin Crisp. This is not from Love 101, but Sherry Huber wrote a book entitled Be the Person You Want to Find, and the title says it all. Except for the attributed quotes, all of the following were written by Peter McWilliams. Who have you always lived with, and whom will you eventually die with? And who will be the only person to accompany you on that ultimate adventure? Just think of death as a theme park with a high admission cost. And who has been there every time you've had sex? Yes, from time to time others may have been nearby doing what they could to help. But whatever pleasure you felt was inside yourself, experienced in those inner electrochemical, physiological pleasure places that are entirely your own. The self-contained, emotionally autonomous, intellectually free individual is the greatest threat to the institutions that want to control us. Sexual attraction is just energy. If the time is not right to express it sexually, for whatever reason, then the energy can be used to create something else that is productive, satisfying, and fun. So it is in all relationships. If you take care of your needs and wants, being with others is more enjoyable and productive. In fact, for most people, self-love makes one less selfish. The last quarter century of my life has been pretty constantly and faithfully devoted to the study of the human race. That is to say, the study of myself. For in my individual person, I am the entire human race compacted together. I have found there is no ingredient of the race which I do not possess in either a small way or a large way. Self-service. Our lives are probably cluttered with things that we'd be a lot better off with, in other words. Self-service is taking care of them. In being of service to yourself, ask yourself, if I were asked by the person I love most in the world, other than myself, to do this right now, would I do it? Self-discipline is a powerful tool for creating and maintaining good habits. Good habits let us love ourselves automatically. Fortunately, sex lends itself quite well to dividing and conquering desires. Not only can sex be successfully separated from other relationship needs, but it can, with a little effort and honesty, be divided into smaller, eminently more fulfillable desires itself. If we took the time to explore our desires and made an honest list of what we are looking for when we say or think we are looking for sex, we'd probably discover that some of these desires could be met in other ways. We would also discover that many of these desires, including orgasm, can be met without another person even being around. In fact, some of these desires are better met without the interruptions and intrusions of others. Masturbation, the amazing availability of it. James Joyce said that. The desire to be touched, to experience bodily pleasure, and to have muscular tension released in a way that hurts so good is often best met by a professional masseur or masseuse. Consider what you have in the smallest chosen library. A company of the wisest and wittiest men that could be picked out of all civil countries in 1,000 years. The thought which they did not uncover to their bosom friend is here written out in transparent words to us, the strangers of another age. Ralph Waldo Emerson said that. When we are alone, it is much easier to relate to the great minds and thoughts contained in books, audio tapes, movies, and other media, especially, of course, zaporacle.com. It's also easier to relate to the great ideas and thoughts in our own mind. It's important to develop an appreciation for ourselves, for the pleasure of our own company. Perhaps one of the most enjoyable aspects of solitude is doing what you want when you want to do it, with the absolute freedom, external realities aside, to change what you're doing at will. Solitude removes all the negotiating we need to do when we're with others. They are never alone that are accompanied with noble thoughts. Sir Philip Sidney said that. One of the pleasantest things in the world is going on a journey, but I like to go by myself. William Hazlitt said that in 1822. A man thinking or working is always alone. Let him be where he will. Henry David Thoreau said that in 1854. The man who goes alone can start today, but he who travels with another must wait until the other is ready. Henry David Thoreau. He travels fastest who travels alone. Rudyard Kipling. Aloneness is inevitable in being human. People cannot accept this. They should be aware of it and use it. It heightens your perceptions. Edward Albee. Solitude gives birth to the original in us, to beauty unfamiliar and perilous, to poetry. Thomas Mann. If you are lonely when you are alone, you're in bad company. Jean-Paul Sartre. What one has to do usually can be done. Eleanor Roosevelt. I shun father and mother and wife and brother when my genius calls me. Emerson. Although keeping agreements is a good technique for building trust with others, the more important reason for keeping agreements is building trust with ourselves. Committing to a dream is not a one-time occurrence. It must be done daily, hourly, continually. We must choose to commit to our choice over and over. The test of this commitment is action. The time to commit is now, and now, and now, and now, and now. The illusion that romantic love is real and all other reality less real is a powerful one. Service is not an obligation. It's a privilege. The 46% of marriages that do not last longer than 5 years have almost all moved from being primarily romantic endeavors to incorporating one or more of the other types of relationships. Thousands have lived without love, not one without water. W.H. Auden. You never will be the person you can be if pressure, tension, and discipline are taken out of your life. James G. Bilkey. And last two quotes are from Carl Jung on love. Where love reigns, there is no will to power, and where the will to power is paramount, love is lacking. The one is but the shadow of the other. It is a favorite neurotic misunderstanding that the right attitude to the world is found by indulgence in sex. So there are quite a few documents I have directly related to these subjects, such as No Tristans Allowed Beyond This Point, Debunking the Western Myth of Romantic Love. And these documents are all linked on the at the bottom of this card.